A tale of two Badgers. Nolan Winter is re-upping for his senior year, while John Blackwell is a Duke Blue Devil. Thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Throw a like and a subscription if you're so kind as to do so. And what we're going to do today is we're going to take Nolan Winter and John Blackwell and compare and contrast their widely divergent senior year journeys that they're both going to be taking. And before I do this, I feel I need to have a little bit of a disclaimer. So someone doesn't get into my mentions or the comments and say, this is me, belly aching and sore losering about John Blackwell. I am not doing that. You can go back and look at and listen to the podcast I did when he declared for the portal. I think that's about 2-3 weeks ago. And I said, don't hate the player, hate the game. And I pretty much stand by that. I mean, the money that, if you believe reports, John Blackwell is going to be getting at Duke, we'll get a little more into this in a moment. If that is truly $4 or $5 million compared to what he would have been offered at Wisconsin, that's my kid. He's a Duke Blue Devil, guys. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe that makes me a bad parent, but that is lifetime money. That is John Blackwell could put a basketball down and never pick it up again after this year and live a comfortable life kind of money that most of us watching this podcast and as Badger fans have no conception of. And that's not lessening us in the way we live our lives. It's just, it's funky money in a way that we don't understand. We get a $5,000, $10,000 raise in a year and we're celebrating it. This is millions of dollars of a raise. So I just want to get that out there before we start. But some of the things that Blackwell has said since then, and along with his declaring statement today, I do have a little bit of a critical eye tuned into that. And I want to talk about some of these things just as kind of a capper, and we're going to move on then. But anyway, I want to start with Nolan Winter, as we should. Anyone who's been listening to this podcast and has been reading my stuff on Scary Alvarez on Twitter knows that this is one of my favorite dudes. It has been for a long time. I just, he's it's such a cliche to say he does it the right way. I mean, I say that sometimes almost to make fun of people who say that. But Winter is just, he's a dude, man. He's a Badger dude. This is a Minnesota kid. Big shocker there. Not goofy like in an insulting way, but he's kind of he's a very unique individual. Just seems like a genuinely nice guy. He's good with his time. And most importantly to Wisconsin basketball fans, he's a damn good basketball player. He's a really, really, really good college basketball player. And as I've said previously, I believe this gentleman has pro basketball in his future, potentially even the NBA. Some things have to, break right for him, and it has to be a really nice senior year for the Badgers, which I think he's more than capable of having. But that inside-outside game that he has, with the NBA being as it is in 2026, I kind of like that. He has a skill set that is in demand, most definitely. If this was 1985, he wouldn't get a sniff. But that doesn't matter. We're not playing in NBA in 1985. Now we're playing NBA in 2026. But I think a lot of us believe that Nolan Winter was going to be coming back, given how this roster was shaping up. Most specifically, there was not a Nolan Winter replacement in the portal. That was a pretty good sign. But yeah, he just announced today that he is going to be coming back. I don't have the statement, but there will be one, I'm sure, through the team soon. But this is a big win for the Badgers. As big a returning player win as one I can remember in a long time. I'm trying to think of one. It seems like hyperbole to say like Frank Kaminsky, because they're different players. And no, I don't think Nolan Winter is going to be a Player of the Year, Naismith Award guy. But like John Tonji had 1 year, he was never coming back. Johnny Davis had one good year for Wisconsin. Okay, so he never returned after being good. Hepburn, had he come back for his last year, I might have felt similarly about. But really, this kind of stands alone. This is a guy who's been a dyed-in-the-wool Badger, has shown leaps and bounds every year. A real impressive, I think it was 13-9 last year. Unfortunately, a little bit of a late season injury there that hampered his close to his season. And if you were watching the same game I was, definitely limited him against High Point. A full-strength Nolan Winter, Wisconsin advances to the second round. I have no doubt about that. Neither here nor there, but just a fact. But the kind of guy you can easily root for, not only because you root for the human being and the great family that's supporting him and the badge that he has been, but rooting for the player. If you want to have a good Wisconsin basketball team this fall and next winter, no pun intended, this is a guy to build your team around. So, nothing shocked me about the fact that he announced today that he was coming back, but I was really happy to hear it. Nolan, congratulations. Many of you remember he and Blackwell were on a podcast I had right when they were, fresh-faced and green, just on campus. And I'll put that in the comments. You all can take a look at that if you want to. But anyway, Nolan Winter, we're comparing and contrasting a tale of two Badgers. That's one of the two. John Blackwell, other Badger. He is going to be joining Duke. And as I noted in this podcast, and as I have noted on social media a number of times, this is obscene money. And it's hard not to be happy for the guy and his family. I mean, good for him. And you could do a lot worse than the Duke Blue Devils if winning basketball games is in your future, if you want to win games. Something that it didn't rub me the wrong way. That's probably not the right way of saying it. But I'm going to read a quote that Blackwell said after signing with Duke today, and we're going to unpack this a little bit. For me, I want to be more on the ball. I'm 6'4", so I'm naturally a point guard. And that's just the things I didn't do at Wisconsin. No knock to them. It's just how I want to elevate my game to go to the next level. Okay. There's a lot going on in that statement. But one of the most important things is, and this is something I had noted, and I'm not the only one. I know Herrings and some of these other folks have done it, but noted during Blackwell's most recent season with Nick Boyd on board, Blackwell was having a little bit of trouble adjusting to Nick Boyd having the ball in his hands a lot and being the focal point of Wisconsin's offense. And that statement right there confirms every suspicion that we had of that. So where I think Blackwell and Boyd off the court got along great, I think they support each other, I think they're probably friends. Blackwell was never comfortable in the Wisconsin offense last year, despite the fact that he averaged almost 20 points a game and had some really nice moments. He would fade in and fade out. And I wasn't imagining that. And I said to someone, if he fades in and fades out when he's on Duke, he's going to be fading right to the bench because they have enough talent where they can afford to sit him down. So I don't know exactly what the plan is, and maybe Duke has told him he is the point guard for that team, and he can have the ball in his hands all the time, even with all these other 5-stars and superstars on that team. That's great. Good for John Blackwell. I mean, if that's the case, then he has threaded this needle exactly as he should have. But I just foresee a situation where a guy who had an incredibly high usage rate for the Badgers last year, averaged almost 20 points, got as many shots as a normal person would have thought they'd get, and averaged 20 points a game, somehow thinks he's going to have potentially more than that at Duke. I don't know, guys. I don't know. Like I said, I root for him, but I'm just curious how that's going to shake out with Coach Shire, and we'll see how it goes. But we now have validation now as to not only the money situation, but and frankly, he has a better chance to win big at Duke. That's a fact. But it was about being the man, I think. And he sometimes was, but he wasn't the man at Wisconsin. That was Nick Boyd's team last year. And it looks like John Blackwell wants to be John Blackwell's team at Duke in 26-27, and we will see if it is. But what a tremendous amount of insight now into what issues there may have been just under the surface. And these are the kind of issues that maybe, it helps explain a little bit why Wisconsin maybe didn't hit the heights they could have last year in the tournament. I just don't know what that dynamic looked like, but it's coming into focus now that there was a little bit of goofiness on that Badger team from a chemistry standpoint. It got much better objectively as the year went on, I thought. It was a really rough start, I thought, for Blackwell and Boyd. But who knows? Maybe It said Nick Boyd was filling up in the second half of that High Point game, and maybe that was rubbing Blackwell the wrong way. I don't know. But all that said, I do sincerely wish Blackwell the best. If there's a Wisconsin fan who thinks he's a villain, that's your journey, not mine. I mean, I'm not going to tell you how to fan or not fan. I don't think he's a villain. I would have liked to see it end differently, but the thing that really is overarching all this is he's making so much more money for the Duke Blue Devils than he would have made for the Wisconsin Badgers. That's all the more reason he needed to make this move. And if these other basketball things work out for him, I've said before, I'm not convinced he's an NBA guy, gentlemen and ladies who are listening to this, but he has more money than a second round draft pick would be getting by a wide margin. So, hats off to him and his agency and his family. That's going to make sense. He can average 10 points a game for Duke and average fewer minutes and fewer rebounds and fewer shots. And this is still a massive, monumental financial win for him to have played for the Blue Devils. So anyway, a tale of two Badgers. One, very happy to have Nolan Winter back. Wish him all the best. And by the way, I feel like Nolan Winter and John Blackwell are going to be lifelong friends. I don't think there's any animosity there at all. I don't want to suggest that. I think Blackwell's teammates totally understand the move he's making. I think there's disappointment that he wasn't a part of this team coming forward for his senior year. But yeah, I'm not suggesting in the least that there is any sort of schism here. I'm just telling you that I'm seeing what he said, and I see how this is going. I am very curious. Well, the money thing is totally understandable. I'm very curious to see how this shakes out. I'll be definitely checking out Duke games this year to see, and I'll be happy if he does well, but I just wonder how it's going to go. Anyway, congrats to Nolan Winter. Great to have you back. Thanks for joining me, everyone. Scary Alvarez will continue, and I hope to have a show with some dudes besides me to analyze the entire Wisconsin transfer portal class and how the team is looking heading into this fall. And Scary Alvarez is out.